Hi, everybody. My name is Scott Hillier. I'm founder and president of ÉCU, the European Independent Film Festival. We're welcoming you here to ÉCU Friday Live. This is the fourth one this year, and its title is Animated Life. The hardworking ÉCU crew have come up with this topic, and I think it's a great one because out of the 14 categories that we have at ÉCU, one of them is animated, the animated category, and we've been blessed to have some amazing films over the years. And so in this ÉCU Friday Live, we're going to talk about animation. The art of animation in cinema has been around since the beginning of cinema's history. And in 2020, the animated medium had a market value of $270 billion US. But animation is much more now than the nostalgic Disney and Warner Brothers cartoons that everybody watched when we were kids. But it's a way to delve deeper into topics and express things which can't really be done in the reality of live action, even though Marvel and DC try. The independent animation world allows people to delve into more adult and mature and controversial topics, which is becoming very, very hip and cool. But how does animation look in 2022? What genres, values, and stories are being expressed? This ÉCU Friday Live is going to explore animation as it is today. And we're very, very, very lucky and honored to take the time out from some animated filmmakers who are going to be joining us here today to discuss these things. It's a great pleasure to have them, and alumni from ÉCU in previous years, and also filmmakers from this year's official selection. Just quickly to talk about ÉCU 2022, it's our first festival in person for 2 years due to the obvious reasons. We're going to be screening 58 of the world's best independent films from 24 countries, all competing in 14 categories for 25 awards. It's on the 8th, 9th, and 10th of April here in sunny, hopefully, Paris. Everybody's welcome. Tickets will be going on sale shortly, and you get the chance to meet very, very talented independent film directors, including the ones that we'll be talking to today. So without further ado, I'm going to start introducing our panel of experts, if we wish. We're going to open the curtain on the world of animated films this year. First of all, I'm going to introduce you to Alina Milkina. Alina, welcome to ÉCU Friday Live. Why don't you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll play a clip of your film.
Hello, Scott, and hello, everyone again. I'm Alina Milkina, and I'm a Ukrainian 2D animator and film director, currently based in the Netherlands. For the past years, I worked as a 2D animator in the industry, and now I'm back to independent filmmaking.
Okay.
I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you. We're going to play a little clip from your film called Morning Glass. It's truly, truly beautiful, Alina. Tell us a little bit about your film.
Thank you very much. It was actually my graduation film from Master of Animation. And back then I was feeling a lot of nostalgia from my childhood. And I was very scared of going into the adult world from university to start working. And this fear, it kind of inspired me to dive into this topic of fear of your future, of becoming adult and what is there. That's why I decided to show some the shots from someone's life and how a magical spirit takes a person and shows him that life can be actually unconventionally beautiful.
Nice. Well, I mean, you did jump into the world of filmmaking, so I'm not quite sure about the adult world, but I get the context of your film. Truly beautiful, and again, you're in competition this year, and we wish you all the best for it. And we'll come back, but I'd like to move on to Sasha. Sasha why don't you introduce
Hi.
yourself, mate? Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll play a clip of your film.
Sure. Yeah, I'm Sasha. I'm a painter, originally a painter from Vienna, Austria. I studied painting, and then I moved on to animation because I was really interested with moving image and how you can breathe life into a painting or a drawing via animation. And yeah, I'm really happy to be part of this amazing festival. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm going to ask young Lottie now to play a clip of Sasha's film. Sasha, tell me, I mean, your film got a lot of notice in the office and at other people. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, it's a really stubborn little film, isn't it?
That's a good word for it, yeah.
Yeah, I've been really intrigued by the short film format, especially in animation, or not really, especially in animation, in general, actually. And it kind of, it happened as I tried to cram as much story as possible into those kind of 9-10 minutes. Not necessarily having the viewer understand everything right away, but I tried to leave clues here and there. Yeah.
Well, just quickly, I mean, being a painter and then sort of doing an animated film, it's a very interesting sort of transition. How did you find it? Because you're dealing with technical stuff when you move into animation.
Yeah, I mean, it happened gradually, and it didn't happen like that. It started with storyboarding, I guess. I've been storyboarding for a lot of years, and yeah, it's finding the right. With storyboarding, it's finding the right angle or the right viewport or the right kind of action to show something. And that's kind of an extension of it, and with more powers and with more freedoms, where you can really direct your characters, kind of evolve naturally.
Again, the idea of a stubborn film is exactly right, because it's stuck in my head a lot. I will be asking you questions at the festival about it. And again, we'll come back to you shortly. But next, I'm going to introduce you to Edgar Kere, is how I will pronounce it. You'll probably pronounce it totally different.
Yeah, it's my name is Edgar Keret, and the funny thing is that I'm Israeli, and in Israeli names, like Native American names, have a meaning. So Edgar Keret actually means urban challenge, which could be a good name for a pair of Nike sneakers, but it's really a strange name for a human being.
Thank you. Edgar, apart from the fact that you really want to be a pair of Nike sneakers, tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I'm a fiction writer, and I did a bit of filmmaking, like I've written screenplays and directed, but this is the first time that I'm involved in an animation project. I've collaborated on it with Ofra Kobliner, the animator who had made the movie. We've met, I really liked her, and with me collaborations, they are always personal. I kind of collaborate with a person, not with a medium or a genre. So she's an animator, so we did an animation project, and it's an adaptation of a short story of mine, which is called A Brief History of Us. And it came from the fact that I've been together with my wife for 25 years, and you have this thing that, let's say, when you have breakfast, you say to the waitress, "We'll have the coffee later. We like to have it later." And then you think to yourself, but actually I would like to have it now. But after 25 years, then it's very difficult to differentiate your personal preferences or your preferences as a couple. And I discussed with Ofra this idea that if there could be an evolution of a creature made of a man and a woman, who really can't differentiate themselves. They have 8 limbs and they move along, but they keep asking themselves, what is me in this kind of double-headed creature?
Well, you know what? We're gonna play a little clip of your very, very interesting and great film.
At first we were a cell, then an amoeba, then a fish, and after a very long and frustrating era, we became a lizard. That was the era when, as we recall, the earth felt soft and unsteady beneath our feet, so we climbed a tree. Up there in the treetops, we felt secure. At some point, we climbed down and started walking upright and speaking. And as soon as we began speaking, we just couldn't stop.
It was memorizing just to watch that. It's a very interesting style. Talk to me a little bit about the animated style that is behind the film.
Yeah, so Ofra is both an animator and an illustrator. And when we talked about this project, I think that the thing we wanted the most is that it will feel very personal and internal. Because this story is very much kind of like me or the protagonist kind of thinking stuff inside their head. So we wanted it to be very, very fluid, freestyle, to almost not have substance. And this is the beginning of the movie, of the shot, but as it evolves and it becomes more colorful and more dense.
No, it's mesmerizing. So anyway, so you 3 filmmakers are all competing at ÉCU this year, and I just can't wait to hopefully see you here, but definitely see a large audience react to your films on the big screen. We're gonna introduce you now to Simone, John Paulo. Simone,
hello.
Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Hi, Scott. My name is Simone Gianpaolo. I'm a Swiss filmmaker based in the UK, in London, where I've been working as an animator and director for the past 9 years, almost. So I'm almost British rather than Swiss. I've been working in the industry for big studios and clients such as Cartoon Network, Disney, Netflix, Google, and so on. But I've always tried to keep my independent filmmaker part alive over the years. I've always tried to bring forward my own personal ideas on the side, or trying to nurture my that side of me which loves storytelling and wants to make independent films. So yeah, I've been trying over the past few years to balance the two sides of me, the one more commercial and the one more independent.
That's the big balancing act, isn't it? Because we need to live and breathe, so we do that work, but the independence comes from our soul, and it's very nice to share that. Simone, we're gonna play a little clip of Only a Child.
I'm only a child and I don't have all the solutions. But I want you to realize neither do you. If you don't know how to fix it, please stop breaking it.
Fabulous. I remember the film very, very well, and it was a truly great piece of thing. Tell me a little bit about the film, Simone.
Well, the film was screened last year at ÉCU 21. Unfortunately, I couldn't come in person. We couldn't have that gathering, but I was so grateful that you selected it. So yeah, thanks again for showing it last year. The film is very different, very different from anything else I've done before. Only a Child is a collective work rather than one single person or one single artist creating a film. I selected and I asked an army, an array of 20 different art directors to actually contribute with their own segments and their own personal style. So that's why the film looks very eclectic and very diverse in terms of style. And I've never done that before. It was a dream project of mine to combine all the animation techniques which exist. And it was thanks to this independent project and thanks to applying for fundings at the Swiss TV and Swiss government that I managed to bring that, make that dream come true as an independent film. Yeah.
No, it's great. And corralling a lot of creative people together and having a great result is sometimes a little bit tricky, as we all know. So next I'm going to talk to Arjan. Arjan, I'm not going to pronounce your last name, man. You're going to do it much better than me. So Arjan, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hello, I am Arjan Brentjes from Amsterdam. I also started as a painter long ago. And like 12 years ago, I switched to moving images. And now I do strictly animation as my personal free work. And yeah, and my last film was playing at ÉCU last year. So
well, let's have a little look at that.
And then more news about the pandemic. Experts fear we are confronted with recently mutated bacteria that may not be affected by known antibiotics.
So Ludovica, who's the boss of ÉCU at the moment, has just pointed out to me, and I'm sure I knew it, but she just wanted me to remind everybody that this film was very prescient. It was made before COVID.
Yes. Yeah.
So what did you think when all of a sudden the COVID thing happened?
Well, it was weird, of course, for everybody. The whole thing was like you were suddenly living in a movie, which is happening at the moment in the east of Europe as well, of course. And but for me, it was like I just went into my film, so that's a bit weird. But it did have some consequences for the film, because I wasn't completely finished at that moment. I was still animating the final minute of the film, so it did have it definitely did have influence on the ending of the film, because it used to be a much more bombastic thing, and now I chose for a more poetic ending, because I was afraid of the way it would be perceived in a moment where people were starting to die all over the place. The original ending was a bit, it had some comical elements as well. So this, but it turned out to be a better film. So for the film, that was nice. For humanity, the pandemic, of course, was not so great.
Yeah. So, we've got some very, very talented people here, obviously, but what I particularly like is just every style is different. out of the films that we've watched, and I watch every single film that gets submitted to ÉCU. And I love the sort of the journey that I'm hearing that Alina studied.
Sorry, I can't search that.
Alina has studied this at school, and then we've got some painters and stuff like that. So I'm going to quickly bounce through all of you actually, and just ask about influences and what pushed you into this world, and is there any sort of influences that other budding animated film directors might be looking at going, that's it. So I'm going to start with you, Alina. What pushed you into the world of animated films?
Well, originally I was actually raised on all those USSR animations, and being a child who is an observer, who sees things differently, I don't know, the construction cranes as monsters and stuff, he has this perception, and I think my desire not to lose this ability while growing up, it really pushed me to draw. And then at the university itself, my specialization was actually printing techniques. So I was doing analog printing, etching, linocut. And once I made too many prints, I think 50 prints of the same image, and I decided to put them one after each other. And that's how my first animation was done.
Nice. Well, fabulous. So Ash, I'm going to move on to you.
Sorry. For me, I as well watched a lot of Russian animated films as a child. My mother's from the Ukraine as well. I would say they are darker than Western animated films for children, maybe. And I watched a lot of animation as a child, definitely, as many children do. But it's kind of a magical world you get into when you watch animated stuff. And now my big influence, or my biggest influence right now, is like Peter Chung and David Lynch. Peter Chung might be less well known. He created Aeon Flux in the 90s. It was a series that ran on MTV, and it was very, in terms of storytelling, it was very not so clear and ambiguous, and that inspired me a lot.
I'm going to jump to you, Edgar, because I know that you bounce around a lot in your work life. But tell us, what sort of pushed you into the animation world?
Well, when I write fiction, I'm a minimalist. I usually write very short texts, and what I like about writing or this kind of minimalism, that I feel like a complete control in the universe. And by that, when people kind of read my stuff, they know what's going on in my mind without having to kind of deal with many details about how what time will the train come, what time does it get dark. It's really like you're observed in a way of thinking. And I like that too as a reader. And when I started seeing animation films, I felt that this was the closest that the filmmaking world could give. This idea of kind of really getting into somebody's head, seeing only the things that they feel are important. So it attracted me because I felt the connection between the two. And as somebody who saw a lot of animation films, I must say, it's really it's totally subjective, but many times I feel that the imagery and the emotions are super powerful, but the story is not as good. And I felt really very much many animation films, they come from an image, but it's difficult for them to develop it into a substantial story that would have stand on its own without those images. So when I worked with Ofra, I told her, you come from the image world and you pull me there, and I'll come from the story world and I try to pull back. And maybe we can create some kind of a balance, because maybe we can have this synergy, because those two words are so close, but too many times one of them is dominant in a way that overpowers the other.
I love when you talk about minimalist, because, you know, while I was mesmerized about your film, it's very minimalistic, but it still told a great story. Simone, the influences for you, man.
I grew up as a very artistic child because of the influence of my father, especially. He's a graphic designer and a painter, so I sort of grew up sketching all the time. But I always had a deep love for storytelling as well. So I've always, you know, written stories and illustrated them on the side, made a few very, very basic comic strips when I was at school or during high school. And then I thought, well, how can I bond these two things together? How can I make writing and drawing, you know, come together? And animation was the perfect, most obvious solution to really combine these two loves, the one for storytelling, the one for art and pictures. So I went to Bournemouth Uni in the UK. I started studying animation, in particular CGI as well. And I bumped into two artists who really changed my perception of animated films. I didn't actually bump physically into them. I discovered their work. The first one is a Canadian artist, Frederick Bach, who through his work has been doing, you know, he's reached an incredible amount of success. He won 2 Oscars for his short film, but each one of his films actually have a very strong environmental or social message. So he kept doing independent film throughout his life. Unfortunately, he died around 7 or 8 years ago. But he achieved to, you know, keep doing the stories that he loved with his own technique. And I love that. And the other one is Bruno Bucetto, a very established and world famous Italian animator master, who also through the use of comedy and humor, he's always talked about very deep, important issues in humanity, like war, discrimination, conflicts, and so on. So these two artists, Bruno Bucetto and Frederick Bach, really influenced me. And I thought, wow, if one day I can be half as good as they are, I will, you know, die a happy man. I really want, you know, my creation also to have a deep meaning and move the audience. That's my biggest inspiration right now.
It feels so. I feel like I have the creativity of an ant sitting here listening to all you talented, just because here is my drawing, and when I make a film, that's what I do. So when I'm listening to you guys saying, yeah, I just jotted down a comic strip, and yeah, I mean, that's basically Egyptian hieroglyphics.
But don't worry, I like Scott. I mean, everyone starts with crappy sketches.
Nice, yeah.
I mean, not the best ideas don't come out polished. They always are, you know, very scribbly sketches at first. So don't worry about it.
Hey, yeah, but this is the end. That's the end result. So that's not the start. Ajahn, tell us a bit about your influences, man.
Influences, yeah. Well, I also, as a child, tried to make comic books. So I think there's a lot of kids that try that. But actually, first my decision to switch from painting was that I was bored with painting. And actually from then, I just thought, well, I wasn't selling what I was making anyway. So I just thought, well, I'll just make what I want to make and see what happens. And so I started with live action, mostly against green screen recordings. And then I discovered that animation gives you a lot of freedom, because ultimately I just want to tell an interesting story or make a story or something that is, to me, interesting and different. And if you want to do that with actors and environments and stuff, that is a lot more impractical than using animation. My first full animation film was called Sand. It's about sort of Groundhog Day person who relives the same day, and every day his world fills up with sand, and then he falls asleep in the sand. And in the morning he has to wash his hair. Anyway, you need a lot of sand for this, and that is very productionally difficult product. And CGI sand looks horrible. So I had the script and I had to put it aside until I was trying to do some more animation. And I discovered, well, if you're making animation, all you need is to have a part of the screen have a different color, like beige, and that is sand. You know, this is a very easy way to communicate an idea, and it gives you so much freedom. Actually, the freedom of animation that animation gives you in storytelling is for me the most important reason to make it that way.
Just a quick show of hands here. Who does everybody use a computer now to make animation, or is it hand drawn, or how does it work? Raise your hands if you still do it by hand. Okay. What is the Ajahn? What does the hand wobble mean?
Well, most of it I make in a 3D program, which I then try to look like hand drawn, make look like a hand drawn, and then, for example, backgrounds I draw, but I draw them on an iPad with Procreate. So it's hand drawn, but at the same time it's not paper. I tried that again because, you know, I used to be a painter, so I thought, well, I should just work with paint and pencils and whatever. And then I discovered that over the decade of not painting anymore, I can't switch off the idea that there is an undo button. So I had to I destroyed a whole tree of paper just because I thought, okay, not that. Oh, that's too late. So next one. And then I was so frustrated, and I discovered that you can work very nicely on an iPad. So yeah.
Sasha, you've got a smile on your face. Tell us your hand drawn
it's a contradiction between computer generated and hand drawn animation, or like computer assisted animation, because essentially, yeah, you're holding your pen with your hand, but you're putting it into your computer, you know. Yeah, the undo key is very powerful, and are many other functions, and you can duplicate your old drawings or transform them and stuff, and duplicate only parts of them and cut them out. That's really helpful. That's a real time saver, and it lets you experiment in different ways. And I think it's just another tool set, you know, being drawing on the computer. It's not essentially different.
And Lena, what's your method?
Can you hear me properly?
Yeah.
I'm sorry for my internet connection.
Yeah.
For me, you know, it's why I'm doing. As you could see from the piece, my animation is not really hand drawn; it's all digital. But I recently found out that I have this unsatisfaction that my sketches, which I do only on paper and only with analog materials, they are so different from the final style that my movie has and that my movie usually had. So, for example, right now, I switched completely to analog filmmaking with pencils, and I'm also trying to combine it with digital software as much as it's possible to making it easy. For example, recently quite a popular thing was AppSynth, if you heard about that, where you could use your style frame, which could also be analog, to create frames in between.
Okay. I love the fact that you've gone back back to it, because I look forward to seeing that film. Edgar, what's the style that you're
So Ofra works in a hand-drawn style, but as Sasha said, you know, today really everything involves work with computer, and I think that it's actually a wonderful thing that it can help you take some shortcuts and still give the audience the feeling you wanted to give them, you know. So I think that very few people are really doing things that are 100% purely hand-drawn, but you automatically feel, you know, by design and how fluid it is, that there is something that feels that touches you directly, and it's not mediated by anything.
Simone?
I work mostly in CGI for the final product, but I always plan my storyboards on paper. I don't know why. It's very bad of me. It's not environmental friendly, and I apologize. But last year I storyboarded a whole TV series on paper. It just, my idea flow better when I sketch with pencil. I don't know why. I'm trying to get used more into Procreate or, you know, iPad drawing, and I like that, but I don't know why my ideas just flow better with the simple pencil and white paper, and I still use that a lot for storyboards, thumbnailing, planning the cinematography, and so on. But then the final result, it's all done digitally, often using CG software. Only a Child was a great way to break out of that rule, because I actually had to work with sand, stop motion animator, paint on glass artist, traditional 2D animator. So that was so refreshing to see all these different pipelines and all these different processes, how to approach animation, which is completely different from my CGI pipeline that I'm used to. So I hope I will be able to do more diverse projects in the future, when I can also, you know, work with stop motion artists and 2D and so on. But personally, like myself, I usually use pencil for drawing and planning the direction of the film, and then CGI, like CGI software for animating them.
It's funny again. I push the ÉCU crew every year to take notes, do lists on a piece of paper, because it's there, it's in front of you. And when I write a script, I always handwrite my dialogue, because you're writing at the same time you're thinking and you're speaking it. And I can tell straight away when I watch a film, somebody that's actually written this on a computer, or they've actually written it down and spoke it as they read it, because it's a totally different feeling. And, you know, again, my staff think I'm a cantankerous old human being when I say, don't take notes on your computer, write them down, put them there, and let's go back to the basics. We were bouncing around some questions today, and it was just, I think Arjan talked a little bit about it, but, you know, filmmaking in itself, particularly independent filmmaking, is quite it's quite an individualistic and solitary world, because, you know, you drink wine, you write your script, you go and shoot it, then you sit in a dark edit suite for months and do it. But, you know, the world of animation for me seems even more solitary, because you don't have to deal with the 400 different people asking you the stupidest questions and feeding pizzas, and then the sand doesn't arrive and stuff like that. I'll just bounce around the thing again very quickly. Elena, what, you know, and we all have to collaborate because you need to do this, but it is a solitary business, animated filmmaking, isn't
it? My first film, and so far my only, I made alone, and I will never do it again.
Why?
I solemnly believe it's impossible to do a film in solitude, like starting from pre-production and research and going to post-production. Even like even if people are not involved in the process of production itself, you need so much information. And I think like this definition of animator who sits just behind your computer is false, because we actually have to talk with so many people during the production, and it's always a collaboration. My personal opinion, it's never solitude.
Good, nice.
Actually,
Sasha. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. the thing is, you just have to get a lot older. I am now 50 years and I made the whole film myself, because over the years I learned how to do everything. But I have to admit, it's a lot of work. So yeah, collaboration is probably a good idea.
Sorry, John, may I disagree with you, because you can't do everything perfectly. There are always people who do something better than you, and you would prefer them to be involved in the production.
No, well, that could be true, but at the same time, if like my process is that I don't start at the beginning and I work until post-production. You know, I have a general idea of what the film is going to be, and so most often I start with making the music for it, and then some characters, and and then the subject matter and the style, and they all start mixing, and then I go back to, okay, now I have to make a story. It can be maybe the film would have been more professional if I would have had professionals on every level of what I did, but at the same time it would be different, and maybe it would not have been exactly what I want. So now I have to learn to, because the film I'm working on now is going to be twice as long as Sad Beauty. So I do need some collaboration, and my plan for the future is to make a feature with a super small, like 10 people production team or something like that. So you have as much freedom as you possibly can have. That's the if you have little team, you can work cheap. So you don't need involvement from a lot of funds and people that have opinions about it. So it can be interesting to be as solitary as you possibly can be. It can be, it's my process. But
I want to say that being a writer, most of my life I've been alone doing things that looked exactly as I wanted them. You know, nobody kind of gave a bad haircut to my characters or anything. And that fact was actually what sent me into filmmaking, this yearning for collaboration, because I think that, when Alina says maybe there are things that people can do better, I don't think that this is only true on a professional level. I think that it's true on this kind of personal level. People can bring their passion or different point of views, and the same way that in life, we change our mind and do things. There is something about this process that, for me, I need this balance to do stuff on my own as a writer, and then go to the world and meet all those people that affect what I wanted to do, and sometimes take it away from what I wanted to do, but to a place that is not necessarily a worse one. I guess in the bottom line, it has to do with the project, because let's say the project that I've made with Ofra, I'm a man, she's a woman. It's a movie about a relationship between a man and a woman. So there was nothing kind of more perfect to work in this atmosphere. But maybe if I would want to make a story about somebody who's lonely, or there is a feeling in isolation in it, I wouldn't want it to be polyphonic. I wouldn't want another voice to be in. So I guess in the end, it's kind of, it depends on your personality, and most of all, it depends on the project.
Yeah, I love the idea that everyone's got different methods. Sasha?
Yeah, Losing It was, in a way, quite a solitary work. At the same time, I got a lot of people to help me with it. I showed it to a lot of people during the whole process, and it changed because of it. Many people helped me with their skills as well. It was essential, and the sound guys as well, and the great voice actors, they changed it. And yeah, I prefer to work in collaboration, actually, but just because I think that, as you guys already said, that you can really enhance the work with different perspectives and different people, just because of their viewpoints or approaches. And so for the next project, I'm seeking out other people as well to join me more. But that's also a matter of time and money. Yeah.
Simone, I know that when you had to collaborate with a lot of people. Sad Beauty, but
yeah, it's difficult really. It's difficult to answer this question. It depends on what kind of product you're after. What kind of final result, it depends. Some certain kind of films are only worth making if you are alone, if you make it all by yourself, depending on the technique. Of course, it has to be simplified. It has to be, the more stylized it is, the better to handle as a one-man band. But I don't know, the more I work in animation, the bigger the team becomes, to be honest. Directing a TV series, directing maybe short films or specials, like the team started small, maybe 5-10 people, and became larger and larger over the years. So I don't think I will ever go back to work on something alone, to be honest, because I'm forgetting how to do everything. I used to be able to do everything myself before, when you just get out of university, you can model, you can rig, you can light, and you can render. Now I'm forgetting all this stuff because I'm not doing them daily. And the technology advances so quickly. So you always have to catch up with the new software, new technologies. It's quite, I really admire, artists like you, Arjan, who are able to do everything by yourself, for a short film using CGI. It's quite impressive. But I have to say that there is always one moment of solitude, and it's the very beginning of the project. I always see a bit myself like a lonely warrior shielding my idea at the beginning, and you have to go through these fields of people not believing in you or not giving you enough trust, and that moment is very lonely because it's only you and your idea, and the idea is not fully formed yet. So it's like this ugly baby who doesn't look nice and cute, but you have to keep protecting it and run through the field until you actually can get some trust, can get some maybe money, can get a crew, and then make it come true, and then it becomes less lonely. But that first stage of production is always very, very lonely, and you have to believe in your own idea, and only you can believe in your own idea at first. No one else will.
That's
one more thing about this. I'm not saying that I think that everybody should just work by themselves at all. That's not what I meant. It's just that sometimes you can run into a block where, like you said, you have to shield off your idea, and if some experts are coming along and saying, well, you can't do that, and you believe, well, this is how I really want to do this, then you just go find yourself a way to do that. My motto has always been, if you can join them, beat them. Turn the world upside down.
Nice. I'm going to open it up for some questions. We've got a lot of people online, a lot of very talented young staff here that work for us, as well as other people. So I'm wondering if there are questions. Maybe you could raise your hand, and Ludovica can pump them in. If you can just tell us. Yeah, hi. Ludovica, it's all yours now.
Hi, everybody. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. I have a question that can be for everybody, so you can also answer one right after the other. Let's start with Alina. In your experience, what came first to you? I mean, the idea, the theme, the concept of the movie, or the style of graphics? And how was the process to combine the two things together?
Usually it all starts with a sketch, because quite often you sketch, you don't think about what you're sketching, and then when you realize what you see on your paper that was blank could become an idea. I think most of my projects were starting with sketches, and then the story was building around. You analyze what you are triggered by now, or what you want to tell to others right now in your current period of life, and then it all builds together. and only in pre-production phase, when it already becomes technical, I start like writing a script, I make concept art, and etc. I find people if I need help, I share my ideas. But for me, usually it starts in my sketchbook, somewhere sketching under the tree or on the tree.
Sasha?
For me, it started with Losing It. It started actually as a story only, or more of a construct of a story, because it is so convoluted and stubborn. And only afterwards have I started with the visual side of it, and then it kind of evolved together.
Edgar?
Well, with me, I think most of my life I write fiction, and it's fun because when I write fiction, the stories almost always come from an image. And I say, oh, I see this image. I try to write stories that will kind of give the feeling of the image. And when I work on movies, it's the other way around. They start with a story. I guess that story started with an image, but I really need to have some kind of if not a plot, then a very clear situation that I want to see kind of unfold or develop.
Ajahn?
Maybe sounds a bit strange, but for me, it always starts with the idea of the film as a whole, how it would feel to watch the film, to experience the film, and that it's always a combination of something that interests me in the subject matter of current events. And then I think, how can I combine this with some old movie style or some old art style, or and what could that mean? And then so it's very late in the process of making the film that I know exactly what it will be about. So that's I have to admit, that's not very practical, and it's very difficult for raising funds, because they want to know this stuff that I'm trying to figure out in the process. But yeah, that's how I work.
Simone?
I think my point of view is quite similar to Edgar's ones. I see usually one image or a very important scene in the story, or I visualize a certain sequence or a certain picture which could represent an important part of the narrative. So I usually work like that, but sometimes it goes backwards. Sometimes I start with the technique. So I think, what would be cool to be told in this technique? And my very first independent film was called The White Plus Black Equal Red. And it was all shot on the body of two human beings. And one was dark skinned, one was pale. And so the whole story came out from the canvas, from the kind of technique, the whole story of conflict and racism came out of the fact that this was based on two actual physical bodies. Only a Child was based on the fact that I want to include as many techniques as possible, so that also influence the way of thinking and planning the narrative. So it depends really. Sometimes techniques can drive some ideas. Sometimes it's vice versa. You have a vision in your head, and then you find the best technique to make it come true. That's, yeah. We can't hear you, Scott.
See, people enjoy it when they don't hear me. I was just saying, we might have time for one more quick question. I don't want to keep you guys any longer. Is there another question from the audience? No. Okay. Well, I'm gonna move on. The crew here at ÉCU come up with some interesting facts, fun facts we call them, that we like to sort of throw out. And one of them is there are more than 200 animation studios around the world, and the most active of them are located in Japan, US, Canada, UK, and South Korea, which is very interesting. The one that tickled, well, there's two that tickled my fancy, and I think the first one is Walt Disney won the Best Animated Film with Snow White in 1938, and he was given 8 Oscars. One normal size and 7, which were the 7 dwarfs, and I thought that was very cool. The last one was, and this might not have made its way into the Russian animation, which has obviously inspired 2 of our animators today, but the original name of the Tom and Jerry characters were supposed to be Jasper and Jinx. And I guess, you know, who knew, and maybe we would have been Jasper and Jinxing rather than Tom and Jerry, but Tom and Jerry was a very cool thing. Just to sort of start closing down now, there was a couple of phrases and sentences that sort of really stuck out for me, and I think that the magical world of animation, and I think that that's come through, been reinforced a lot today by talking to you guys, and sort of it's a magic world there, and you can create it and stuff that, and the other one is freedom. You know, as independent filmmakers and whatever, we're always looking for that freedom and, you know, shielding your idea, and because everybody knows how to make your film better than you. We know that, but we stick there and we do this. And I think the world of independence sort of equals freedom for me. There's times that I'm working and I'm earning money and I don't feel very free at all. And that's the times that we're making independent films and spending said money. It's tougher, but the freedom is unbelievable and great. Just to close off, we're going to play Edgar's film out, because unfortunately we played it out with a slight sound issue. So we're going to play it out with sound, because obviously without sound it doesn't work. But I wanted to thank you guys very much for participating and shining a light onto the world of animation. Again, we've got 3 of you guys who are competing at ÉCU, and you know, 2 others that have competed. And what we like to think with our little festival is that if you're selected at ÉCU, you can be rightly considered as some of the world's best independent film makers. So it's a pleasure for us to have you at the festival, but also just here talking today and learning stuff. You know, I learned a lot of stuff today. So I'd like to thank you very much. Again, just as a little plug for the festival, the ÉCU, the European Independent Film Festival, we held in person in Paris this year on the 8th, 9th, and 10th of April. We'd love to see as many of you happy, smiley faces at the festival as possible. It's going to be great to be in there and to compete, to talk, to be in this sort of whirlpool of creativity, which is ÉCU. I'd like to thank my crew, the ÉCU crew, for helping put this together. It's always a last-minute struggle, and of course, I'm the easiest boss in the world, and I don't change things around at the last moment, but yes, I really do. So thank you again. It's been a great pleasure. Thanks to the crew.